Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Tales from the Inside. Would you now welcome your host, Miss Angela Sawyer?
Hello! Thank you very much for being here. Welcome to Tales from the Inside. This is a storytelling show that we've been running every Wednesday during the pandemic, given to us by the Comedy Studio, which is very nice of them. If you've never been here before, welcome. Very glad to have you. This is a really low-key show. It used to be long ago, back in the old times, it used to be a show that happened in my house, just in my living room. And the whole idea was I would get people to come over and they wouldn't quite know what they were going to do, and they would get to really kind of let loose and let out their inner thoughts, with a few cozy people. And then we'd all be better friends afterwards, which I need because I am not good at making friends in real life. So I was like, great, I can plan my friends into existence. And that is the whole point of this show. I am still trying to do it. The good part about that is that I only invite people to come on here that I actually like them. That's really nice. So I'm very excited for all your performers tonight. It's a really, I got some heavy hitters for you. And basically I got tired and I was like, I'm just going to ask the best people. Here they are. So you're going to like them. I'm going to start things off. Basically, we're all just going to tell stories. Everybody got a different theme, and they might use it, they might not. That's okay. But it'll be a loose, fun time, and it's a nice thing to do when you are, it's like a virtual fireplace, you're stuck inside your house, like we all are, and we're going to try and, be like humans again. So, it's December, and I'm going to give you guys a choice. Christmas is almost here, so we can either talk about, and by the way, since we've been doing this every week for a while, I have no dramatic things left to say. Every bad thing that has ever happened to me, I have dissected and gone through and re-therapized it for you guys. So my stories might be a little mundane tonight, but you'll be fine. We're either going to talk about all the blizzards I've ever been in, or we can talk about the worst Christmas gifts I ever got. Do you guys have a preference? People who can hear my voice right now, do you care one way or the other?
I'd like to hear about the Christmas gifts.
Yeah, I like the worst gifts.
Christmas. Okay, yeah. People like worst gifts. That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so I am a middle-aged lady, and I grew up in Colorado, in the suburbs, which, if you know what cities, we're in New England, and cities are very, the city is very big, and it can go many blocks. In the West and the Midwest, cities are like a block, and then there's a huge sprawl of the suburbs everywhere around. It's mostly a suburb with a tiny downtown. And where I grew up, that's what it was like. And so I grew up in a world that is a lot like the inside of a sitcom, except bad. You understand what that's like. And so I got some bad Christmas gifts. The ones that I think are my favorite worst gift now, when I was 11 years old, my mom got me a set, all wrapped separately, of 6 different rainbow colored, all different, each one a different color of the rainbow, matching pastel velour sweatsuits, and that is wrong. I can't understand the adult that she thought I would grow into wearing those. Did she think I was going to live on a yacht and gamble at Scrabble for a living? Did she think I was going to go from gigolo to gigolo, just pretending I was, a rainbow Italian? I don't know exactly what she thought was going to happen, but none of it was reasonable. Because as you can see from looking at me now, as a 50-year-old, when I was 11, I was just like this. I was a creepy, old, weird 11-year-old child, round like a tomato, way too artsy for my own good. I didn't need any sweatsuits. And my parents were a little off, which is how you get a creepy, weird child who likes the arts. So they wanted me to wear the things that I got them. So they were like, you're wearing this on Monday, you're wearing this on Tuesday. So I had days of the week assigned to my different sweatsuits that I had to wear until I finally went back to school. And I was like, can we not get me kicked out of school? I just need jeans. I just need no, it's the 80s. I need proper clothing for this decade. And it worked out okay. That was one time I won. Maybe the worst Christmas gift I ever got, though. My parents got divorced when I was 12 or 13. Took a while, so it was like multiple ages. And then I went to live with my father and my stepmother. And my stepmother was a very high-strung person who really, she would have been a good stage mom. She was really into appearances. She was very proud of the fact that she was a Barbizon model, which is not a thing that you should be proud of. That's pretty intense. And she very much wanted me to grow up to be a stewardess, which is the opposite of my personality. We didn't fit well together. So, one year, so we had a lot of back and forth, and we didn't get along well. And when I was 16, in the summertime, in the middle of August, when it wasn't even quite fall yet, she asked me what I wanted for Christmas. And in a regular family, that's almost thoughtful. But in my family, I was like, that is a declaration of war. That is the beginning, that's the torch that lights the resentment Olympics aflame. You understand? That's very intense. And I was like, what could she want? What could she possibly? And I thought about it for a week. And she was like, she's like, write down for me what you want for Christmas. And I was like, I can't. Whatever I say, it's going to blow up in my face. And I was very paranoid about it. And finally, she was like, look, I'm just a mother trying to shop. Just say what you want on the paper. And I was like, oh, maybe that's true. Maybe it's just, okay. So I wrote what I wanted on the paper. And I wrote my heart's biggest dream at that time, which was to own a copy of Def Leppard's Hysteria on cassette. That was the thing that was the most important to me, because I was positive, I was utterly sure that if I just had that cassette in my possession, my hair would turn blonde and my collars would pop high and I would be the most popular girl in school instantly. I was totally sure that the dudes who did not know my name would suddenly know my name, and the girls who ignored me would suddenly start talking to me, and they would all work out beautifully. And also that Daryl Hall and the president would come to my house and, compliment me on the Motley Crue themed poetry I had been writing late at night. I was sure all of that would take place if I could just get hold of this cassette. I should explain that when I was a teenager, most of my musical information I had a stepbrother who was the same age as I am. He was also 16 years old. I didn't meet him until I was a teenager. That's how stepbrothers work. And he was very popular. He was captain of the lacrosse team. He was prom king. I was Carrie. He was Tom Brady. That's how you know what it was like in our house. So most of the musical information I got, he had his own room in the basement of our house, and he would play music loudly. And I was usually grounded from it because I was always in trouble. And so I would lay down on the floor in my room and put my ear over the vent and hear the music wafting up through the vent to hear what, teens of the day were listening to. I don't know if you guys know what Phil Collins sound like through an air conditioning system, but better is the answer. Phil Collins is great through air conditioning. And Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon, really trippy when you just put it through big metal pipes. It sounds really good. So I was like, I thought my brother had really good taste. And I knew from seeing what he was listening to and from seeing kids at school that this Def Leppard Hysteria cassette was the shit, that it was really going to take off for me. It was really going to pull my whole life together. So I buckled down and I put it at the top of the list. And the rest of the things on the list, I'm sure I just made up. I was just like a pony. I didn't care about what they were. So I just made up a bunch of stuff that I was like, whatever, these won't matter. And I gave the list to my stepmother. And of course, it was August. So we went back to our lives or whatever. finally, Christmas comes, and I'm 16, but I'm a human being. So I had passed through the room where the Christmas tree was many times and peered at the boxes to guess what was in each one, you know. I had picked up the ones with my name on them and shaken them and just tried to decide what they were. And there were a few that were probably clothes, there were a few that were probably socks, but there was one way, way under the tree that was like the size of a pack of cigarettes, and it had my name on it. And I was like, oh my God, it might happen. I could get it. And on Christmas morning, the entire family, which my family was very, I don't know about you guys, but dysfunctional families, Christmas is stressful. Christmas is like the day of the year there is most likely to be a huge meltdown. Best behavior is like the worst thing that can happen to you. So everybody is dressed extremely carefully in very casual pajamas and like trying not to move too much in their very comfortable clothing and trying not to say anything that will set anybody off and being it's like honestly when you're watching The Crown on Netflix, it's very similar. So we're all trying not to stress each other out, and there's this very formal, like, each family member picks up a box and gives it to the person, and we all take a turn, and we finally get down to the end, and all that's left under the tree is the little box that looks like cigarettes. And my stepmother sees that it's under the tree, gets up, pulls out the box, and then hands it to my stepbrother. Now, I've been watching. I know it doesn't have his name on it. He doesn't pay any attention. He just opens it. It's this cassette. It's the Def Leppard Hysteria cassette. And he looks at it and he goes, oh, I already have this. And then he just tosses it and walks out of the room. And I was like, oh, I lost my mind. I lost my mind completely. And I was like, okay. So nobody said anything. And everybody got up. It was the last present, so everybody got up to go eat food. That was the next thing that was supposed to happen on our agenda. And I was left standing in the room, totally just like with my stomach in my shoes, looking at the Def Leppard cassette that my stepbrother had just like tossed onto the floor. And granted, I try to tell myself, especially these days, that I'm a good person and that my family was terrible, but I'm their kid. I'm also terrible. It's all my fault too. So I did a very spiteful thing. I took my foot and I kicked the cassette under the living room couch. That's all I did. And then I went off to eat. Didn't do anything else. Within a few hours, my stepmother started asking where the cassette had gone to. And there was a big fight, and my parents accused me of stealing the cassette, which was both true and not true, so I didn't say anything about it. And they went upstairs and they like went through my room, very dramatic, very like Lifetime movie. They actually found some of my Motley Crue themed poetry, which did not go over well. They did not think that Vince Neil was a sexy man, so they got very upset about that. And it was a whole huge blowout. And it was kind of the beginning of a serious deterioration of my family's relationship within itself. A couple of years later, basically, I left the cassette there. I was the only one who knew it was under the couch. Nobody was going to go looking for it. The only person who vacuumed in that room was me anyway, so nobody would ever find it. And I just let it sit there. And then a couple years later, as things got worse and got more deteriorated, I determined that I should move out of the house. By that time, I was almost 18, and I was like, I'm ready to figure out how to live, and I can figure out how to have a job, and so on and so forth. So one day, things came to a big head, and it became obvious between me and my parents that I was going to have to move. So I was at school while we were fighting about whether or not I was going to move. And I came back to the house to sort of like get my stuff and move out. And I had a place I was going to go stay at my friend's house and all that good stuff. And it was very, again, Lifetime movie, very dramatic, very teenagery. So I ring the doorbell of my own house, and my stepmother answers the door, and I was like, hey, I'm just coming to get stuff so that I can go to somebody's house to stay. And she was very upset with me. So she was like, I think I'll get it for you. I'll get what you need. I don't want you coming in the house right now, which that's a thing moms will do. So I was like, okay, I need clothes and, whatever. And she was like, fine, I'll go get it for you. And so she went upstairs to go get whatever I was going to get. And I'm standing in the doorway of my parents' house, and I'm more freaked out than I've ever been. I'm totally terrified to try and figure out how to go live by myself. I think that I have it together, but also I'm almost 18. I don't know how to live at all. Like, I barely know how to hold a job. I don't know what taxes are. I'm not sure how to curl my hair. Like, there's a lot of stuff I don't know how to do. And so I'm not sure how to I don't know how to find apartments, that kind of stuff. Like, just practical stuff that as an adult. I've never been grocery shopping by myself, all that kind of stuff. But I'm standing there kind of scared and kind of like panting a little bit. And I see across the carpet under the living room couch, I see the corner, the tiny glint of the neon letters of Def Leppard's Hysteria. And I think, oh my God, I could get it. Like, nobody would know. I could just get the cassette and put it in my pocket and nobody would ever see. And I had to like have a little conversation with myself about whether or not that was okay. And I was pretty scared that if I got caught, it was going to like be super bad. So I was very like, oh, I don't know. And then finally I was like, fuck it. What's the worst that can happen? And I scooted across the carpet and I picked up the cassette and put it in the pocket and I made it right back to the front door. And just as my stepmother came down the stairs to give me like, a garbage bag full of some clothes. And I moved out and things went okay. I found a place to stay. I, continued to hold my terrible job at a mall restaurant. And I learned how to pay rent and learned how to take myself to the grocery store. And months later, after all the drama had died down, I finally kind of like pulled all of the stuff out of the various garbage bags that I had collected. And I found the cassette and I listened to it. And I got to tell you, it sucked. That is the worst record Def Leppard ever put out. What were those people thinking? It's nothing compared to Pyromania. And I can't believe that I went to that much trouble for such a bad record. So that's the story of the worst Christmas present I ever got. The rest of your performers on the show, they might not have stories about dramatic life. They don't have to one-up me or anything. Some of them will be funny, and sometimes the stories are sad. But the thing is, the stories are real insights into the insides of their skull. And that is what I want most of all for you and for them. So, very excited to bring up your first performer. This guy, he is one of my favorite people in Boston and on the planet in general. He's so funny. He runs this dumb town, I tell you for sure. His show, Cohost to Cohost with Creanie and the Gipper, is the only thing that I've really watched during quarantine very often. It's very, very funny, and he's super sharp. So please give it up right now for Rob Green.
Thanks, Angela. My prompt was a time when your insides became your outsides. But after listening to your story, I kind of want to tell a story about Christmas. What do you guys think? Should I do the...
Sure.
All right, I'm going to do the Christmas story. So a few years back, I went through a pretty rough breakup. My girlfriend of 5 years left me, and we would always spend Christmas with her family. I don't see my family on Christmas. My family is dead. They're all dead. So I would always spend Christmas with her, and so it was the first year after the first Christmas after we broke up was particularly tough. Not just because of that, but also the breakup did prompt me to, for the first time in my life, attempt to get mental health care at the age of 40, and I was pretty quickly diagnosed as severely depressed, and so my doctor tried putting me on antidepressants, and they did not go well. I took a bunch of different types of antidepressants, and one of them made me sleep 16 hours a day, which really it doesn't help with your depression when you're constantly losing work because you can't be awake long enough to answer emails. And one of them, the one that was the best, just made me have weird orgasms. Like they weren't bad, they just were weird. Like they were like longer and more productive, but it was still not worth it. But there's one that I took that just gave me constant suicidal ideation. So like just obsessive suicidal thoughts. And it wasn't like I was worried that I would kill myself as much that I felt like I should, but not just me. It's like all of us, you know, like it just made me look at the world like, is anyone enjoying any of this, you know? And so that happened pretty immediately when I started taking the medication, and my doctor said, give it 6 weeks, and if it should even out, and if it doesn't, you'll get off it. And it never did even out, but Christmas happened during that 6 weeks, and so I was already depressed because of the breakup. I was on a drug that gave me obsessive suicidal thoughts, and I was going to the Comedy Studio Christmas party without my girlfriend, who had gone to it the last 5 years, alone for the first time, and I was feeling pretty low. So I turned on the radio. I turned it on to college radio. I love college radio because it's a mess, you know. It's just, there's just no format. It'll be like a sea shanty, and then like a track that's just Henry Winkler, TV's The Fonz, reading a speech by Abraham Lincoln. Not the Gettysburg Address though, like an album cut. You know, and then it'll just be like, and the DJs always just kind of ramble on and have very little energy. Let's be like, all right, this next track coming up is it was originally released in 2004 on a limited 7-inch. 2006, it got a wider release on the compilation Shit in the Fan, and eventually released a different recorded version on the band's 2008 compilation record. And then it'll just be like two guys like smashing a grand piano with sledgehammers for 3 minutes. And I love that. I love that about college radio. So I turn on college radio on my way to the Comedy Studio Christmas party, feeling low. And immediately the song comes on that made me think of my ex the most, which was a song by a band called Cub. The song's called New York City. And it's a song about being in love with someone who lives in a long distance relationship with someone who lives in New York City, which is exactly our situation. I lived in Boston. She lived in New York, which of course was difficult just financially. All my money is tied up in half-used Metro cards. But so the song that makes me think of her the most comes on, and I'm already in a pretty fragile place. So when the song finishes, I am feeling very low. And then the next song that comes on is actually something I'd heard before I ever heard this Cub song, which was a cover of the same song by They Might Be Giants. So I've just heard the Cub song, New York City. Now they're playing They Might Be Giants' cover of the song that makes me think of my ex-girlfriend the most. And I'm feeling kind of shook. After that, they played two covers of that song I'd never even heard before. So by the time I make it to the Comedy Studio Christmas party, I'm a complete mess. I go inside and I go up to my friend Caitlin and I explained to her what happened and how upset I was. And she said, well, in the universe's defense, you could have changed the station. I said, change the station. But I love that song. That's my story. Thanks.
Give it up for Rob Green.
Yeah, Rob.
Very nice. Very nicely done, sir. I, too, love college radio. My introduction to Boston, in many ways, was through college radio. One of my first boyfriends locked himself in the local college radio station to play songs about our breakup. Now, if you haven't been to the show before, it sounds like I have a very dramatic life. I promise it's usually very even. But college radio is amazing. I have very fond memories of walking into the local college radio station and being nervous, like nobody told me how to get through it or who to talk to or anything, and just trying to find somebody to be like, what do I do now that I'm here? And coming upon a guy on the air, and I didn't know enough to know that it was the air studio. It was just a guy in a room with a bunch of equipment, and he's holding a microphone to a vacuum and like yelling at the vacuum, and just walking in and be like, hey, I was gonna do some volunteer work here today, and I don't realize that there's a live mic. And he's like, oh, do you want to vacuum? And I was like, sure. And then he just followed me around while I vacuumed with a microphone for a while. So college radio is pretty fun. It's a place where you can find out what's going on. Okay, your next performer, I'm really psyched to have your next performer here. This guy is super charming. I used to see him at Meg's Lounge, a place in Quincy where there was a debate show every Friday. And basically, I don't know him super well, but I think he might be the sweetest person on the show, which is saying something because this show is a softy celebration. So very, very excited to welcome him. He is super great. So please welcome Craig Bideman.
Hey, everyone. Oh, boy. Talking about college radio, before my story, I actually helped out with Rob telling his story. I was like, this is too relatable because I helped out with my buddy who was a very non-personable person who was hosting a radio show. And I'm like, why did you do this? And he was like, I thought it would make me like better at public speaking. And I'm like, this isn't really public speaking. And my favorite thing about the college radio station at Oregon State University was they had a list of words that you could not say on air. And one of those words was pink taco. I was like, what? Why can't you say pink taco? And apparently it's because it's like a euphemism for vaginas. So there we go. So my prompt was to tell a story about a time I could tell my parents my parents were liars. A time when I could tell my parents were liars, or that they lied to me. And buckle up. So I'm adopted, and it gets worse. And so, so I am originally from Phoenix, Arizona. That's where I was born. I'm from Oregon, but I am originally born in Phoenix, Arizona. And my biological mother knew my adopted sister. And my sister was like friends with my biological mother. They were very close, but they were very young when she had me. And my sister was like, if you don't want to have your child, I'll watch your child. And so my sister was my mom for a minute, which is really weird to think about. But then my parents were like, no, we'll take him in. And so they took me in. Fast forward 17 years, I've been adopted. My whole life, I'm like, yeah, I'm not like anyone else in my family, blah, 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 whatever. I'm not a redhead. I'm the only non-ginger in my family. I get it. I'm different from everyone else. My parents sat me down shortly after my 17th birthday, and they're like, so here's the thing. They never legally adopted me. And so this is the story of how this worked out. When my parents initially sat me down to tell me all of this, I had no reason to suspect that this was going to be the outcome of this conversation. They sat me down and told me that when they first happened upon me, my sister was like, I'm going to adopt you. No, my parents are going to adopt me. There was basically a handshake agreement that my parents were taking over my guardianship, which is insane. So there was an agreement by my biological parents and my parents that I have had my whole life that we're going to take over Craig's life. Fun fact, Craig isn't isn't my real name. So my given name is Carl. So I was born Carl Craig Titus. And so when I was adopted, my parents actually started calling me Craig when I was like 5 or 6. So that's basically all you need to know about that. But when my parents took me in, there was just an agreement in the air between people that Craig is now his guardians are Wayne and Betty Bideman. Those are my guardians. Those are my parents now. Then we all moved to Oregon from Arizona, and I started to get older, as one ages. And when it became time for me to enroll in school, there posed a problem, i.e., my name doesn't match because my parents decided to falsify a birth certificate, claiming me as their birth child. I have a fake birth certificate from the state of Arizona that says that Wayne and Betty Bideman are my parents and that my given name is Carl Craig Bideman at that point. And so I didn't know any of this until I was 17 years old. Okay? There is still a handshake agreement out there that they are my parents. All right? I go through school. None the wiser. The only thing that I at any point had to suggest or ask is that they change my name to Craig when I started going by Craig. So the school was like, all right, cool, you're Craig Bideman now. Great, hell yeah. I was 10 years old on Christmas Eve. My biological father had moved to Oregon a couple years ahead of previously. I actually knew my biological brothers a little bit. So like they were in my life a little bit for a couple of years. So my biological father had remarried. My biological mother, I think, was in prison at this point. I actually never had a relationship with her, and she actually passed away like 5 or 6 years ago of heart failure. So I got to check out and take care of my heart. That's all I learned about my health history. So that's great. But biological father remarried, was in the early stages of a meth addiction, which is good to know. Because of the decision that was about to be made. His wife at the time was very young and got it in her mind that this handshake agreement didn't matter. So on Christmas Eve, when I was 10 years old, so 97, they rolled up to my parents' place where a few of us were still we celebrated Christmas on Christmas Eve. So we were like celebrating and stuff. My biological father and his wife come in and say, we're taking Craig. And I was like, and I had no idea what was going on. My father and my mother were like, no, you're not. It's our kid. You can't have him. They were like, no, we know that it's not a legal adoption. We can take Craig. And this is all my biological father's wife's doing because he was a weak human being. So they actually took me. They basically abducted me on Christmas Eve. And they're like, we're going to get on a bus and we're going back to Arizona. So they had my two biological brothers. I was in the back of this van. We went, which is creepy to say. I was in the back of a van. I was just abducted by a man who gave birth to me. And that's a weird thing to say too. He did not give birth to me. So we get to this bus station. My brother, who was in the military at the time, was home on leave. And he and my father decided to meet us at the bus station. And my brother is also now a cop. Also, if you've heard my story about how I was taught what masturbation is, same brother. He met my dad. My brother and my dad met us all up at the bus station. My brother gets on the bus, pulls me off the bus, and was like, "You're not going with them." And then my biological father comes off the bus, and my dad is like, I've never heard my dad swear really ever in my life except for this moment. He's like, "If you ever come back to take Craig, we will fucking kill you." And that was like, I was 10. I had no idea what that even meant at the time, but I was like, oh my God, that's intense. And so when I was back with my family, they were like, we need to get something done here. So being the fast movers and shakers that they are, they took 7 years to to actually do something about it. And, around when I turned 17 is when they sat me down and told me all of this. It was also explained to me that that's the reason why I couldn't get a job in high school, why I couldn't get my driver's license, because I didn't have anything that had my legal name on it. And I was registered for school under a false name for 12 years or however long. So when I turned 18, they adopted me as an adult, which apparently is super easy to do. I had no idea you could do that. They adopted me as an adult. I could legally change my name through that process. The school was none the wiser because we were just like, now Craig's official name is Craig on your manuscripts and not Carl like it was forever. Don't worry about that last name. We never did anything about that. So officially at 18, I was a Bideman. I had my official guardianship. It was no longer a handshake. And my mom told me to never tell anyone this story.
Oh my God.
But I don't talk to her, so whatever. And I'm sure she's not watching, I hope.
Your secret's safe with us.
Thank you so much.
Give it up for Craig Byman.
Yeah.
That was a fantastic story. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's nice to know that I'm not the only one who has weird parent stories. I'm glad you made it through. You're all one guy to us, that's for sure. Okay, so our next performer, I'm super psyched for him to come and talk to you. He has a podcast that is a podcast that is actually worth listening to, which is a rare thing to be able to say out loud. It's called Stuck and Poke. I'm pretty chuffed about it because I helped him pick out the name. And it's a podcast about regrettable tattoos, which if you have met people, especially fuck-ups from New England, you know that we are legion. We have them. They are out here. So I think it's a great idea and super entertaining, and you're going to love him to death. Please put your hands together right now for Chris Post.
Oh, hey. It should also be mentioned Angela will be one of the next guests as well. So thank you for all of your help. Yeah, my story's gone out the window because I need to backtrack to Angela and Craig and unpack a few things. Angela, first we're going to go to cassettes because, my apologies for running off for a second. I had to go get all my cassette decks, at least the ones that aren't in storage, the Def Leppard ones are in storage somewhere, but I got all my Motley Crue gear, my Motley Crue cassettes, and we're going to discuss this.
Let's do.
And my Motley Crue biography, The Dirt,
Very
which
important.
was spun into a horrible Netflix film, which I still haven't even watched, but Bill McMorrow said it was garbage, and I would trust Bill
Oh
McMorrow
no,
with
it's
80s
the best
metal more than
comedy in years.
It's
yeah. But yeah, let's talk about Theater of Pain. Angela, we'll
Oh,
probably
please,
talk about it on the
let's.
podcast more. It's probably the only time you and I have ever had an intense discussion. But yeah, I say this with staunch heterosexuality, but yeah, don't tell me Vince Neil was not an attractive man in the 80s. Yeah, all right. So yeah.
I
Look
mean,
at that.
honestly, yeah, Vince Neil's basically Aquanet as a person, so he's perfect for the
Yeah.
80s.
Yeah, don't look at him past 1989. The years have not been kind, but yeah, that was what I was going to start with. Also, Craig, hats off to your dad staying married while he was on meth, because when I was on meth, I couldn't even get my roommate to go to Papa Gino's with me. So that's, kudos to you and your family, sir. But Craig, are you still there? Sorry, I have limited windows.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Yes.
Oh, awesome. So are you like, do you have like a social security number now and everything? Sorry, I'm like,
So that
I'm
was actually part of it. That was like part of the reason why I couldn't get a job or anything, because my social security was attached to a name I wasn't using. So I do now.
wow,
Yeah.
God, that's fucking bad shit. Yeah. God, I usually open my set with how I'm not getting along with my dad, but I tip my hat, sir. So I will go into other shit. Yeah. Angela gave me a theme of when I tried to save the world, but I realized I don't probably look out for anyone else other than just, the people within my inner circles, and yeah. But outside of the Boston comedy community, and yeah, just my close friends. But I was thinking about when I was in college, God, when I was in college, like I went to college in Connecticut, which was just, the worst. Because like I realized Connecticut has this weird stigma because it has the 3 poorest counties and 3 wealthiest counties in America. So when you say Connecticut and someone groans, you don't know if it's because they hate, violence or country clubs. Like it's like one or the other. It's like rarely like that. And I went to college in Connecticut, and most of the people lived in state, and they would just shit on each other's towns, and it always just amused me, just because it's like, what, like New Haven's got like a better Applebee's than Bridgeport. Like it didn't make sense to me. So like, but and it's weird. I'm marrying a woman from the Hartford area, and I remember telling that to my mom, and her first thing she said is, "Oh, the insurance capital of the world," like, which is like the most Connecticut-y thing you could ever say. But like, I don't know. Like I've never gone back to a college reunion or anything. Like I've kept in touch with some of them, but I don't ever want to go to a reunion because it was just like, return to the scene of the crime, and I hated myself in college because like, I mean, I still do, but like, I'm more so then, because like college is like the first time you're away from your family, and it's the first time you get like a sense of freedom and independence and full blown freedom. And what did I do is I gained 50 pounds, like all just booze weight, and most people, in these impoverished countries, they get their first taste of freedom. It's like, oh, I want to be able to vote or use indoor plumbing. And me, I was like, no, I want to play beer pong with vodka. Like that was how I wanted to use freedom for the first time. And I just hated like our values, because I don't know, like your value system of like what makes you, what makes you a prized, like, guy at like 19 is like either you can fight or how much liquor you can hold. And so I would go on like tangents of like, oh, I can drink you under the table, which, in a twisted way I thought was safer for me than I can beat you up. Like I was like, hey, as long as I'm, blacking out, I'm not, like doing external damage, just internal, but I don't know. So I went to college in Connecticut during the Yankees dynasty. This is going to go great for this audience. So like, Connecticut's like the Mason-Dixon line of like the Red Sox-Yankee rivalry. And I was in college before the Red Sox had broken quote, the curse or whatever. So there was literally just Yankee fans like laughing in our face all the time. And my dad grew up a Yankee fan, which like just, you know, poured gasoline on it because, you know, he and I have our issues. But after, I think it was the third Yankee World Series championship in a row, I got stupendously hammered. I was drinking a vodka so cheap they don't even make it in Massachusetts. It's called Dubra. I think it's only made in Connecticut, actually. It was like, I think $7.99 a handle. So it's, you know, in the Popov family on that tree, you know, like they look up to Smirnoff, you know, for class. But I decided I was going to find the biggest Yankee fan I could, not like in terms of fandom, but actual in like girth and mass. So I went up to this kid I was friendly with, named Bobo, not his Christian name, and by my dimensions, probably about 6'3", 280, and just took the first swing I could at him, and he returned a hit, and yeah, it knocked me clean out, where it split my head open, and I had to get stapled. And but I was so hammered, so my body went like into like shock or something like that. And my friends were like, "Oh, we got to take you to the ER or something like that." And I'm like, "Shut up, pussy," you know, like, you know, even though I'm like looking like Carrie at the prom, like, you know, except me. But and eventually they take me to the ER in New London, Connecticut, where I went to college, which is a cultural hotspot. The biggest bar in town is called Roadhouse. And actually, when the first time I went into the bar, I was like, "Oh, like the Swayze movie." And the bartender was like, "Yep, that's us." Yep. Like it was Pride. Like, and they discharged me the next day with I had a .32 when I got in, which apparently means like brain dead or something. No, .4 is brain dead, but like, I don't know. I had to be carried in. But you know, I walked out, and I actually ended up like seeing Bobo like a couple weeks later or whatever, and he apologized profusely. He felt horrible. And when the Red Sox finally won in 2004, who do you think the first guy I called was? So yeah, that's my story. Thanks, everybody.
Guys, give it up for Chris Post for surviving Bobo and also Connecticut, both very punch heavy. That's awesome. I cannot wait to dive deep into Motley Crue ins and outs with you.
Yep.
Seems very good. I appreciate it a lot. Okay, I am going to bring up our next performer. He's fantastic. I cannot wait to see. I believe he is recently become a semi-adoptive father, so I cannot wait to hear his take on our themes for this evening. He's also extremely funny and runs Pick a Side Stupid, which is currently online and involves comedic debates, which I know not everybody knows what that is, but basically it's fake arguing, which comedians love, and it's very fun. And also there's a associated trivia show and all sorts of activities and so on. It's a really cool like world of comedy that you can get into, and it's one of the best things Boston has put forward, and now it is outside of Nashville, I believe, in Tennessee, and you are going to love what you hear from our next performer, Sean Carter. Give it up for him.
Hey, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Angela. I am outside of Nashville, but like very far outside of Nashville. So if you're, you know, like, hey, I should come visit, let's hit up Nashville. It's like, well, I live closer to Canada than I do to Nashville. So I'm still happy to go there, but it'll take us a little while. But yeah, man, Craig, I did not know that story, and I learned something tonight. That is wild. And I am, I mean, am I adoptive father now? I'm helping to raise a small child at this time. Again, not adopted. There is a very loose agreement. We don't know legally what it means right now. So we're hoping to figure it out before 17 years goes by, but you know, we'll see. So the prompt that I was given was was like something that I couldn't believe that I got paid for, which is like, you know, everybody in this group and probably a bunch of people watching, you're all comedians, like, you know, there's so many times when you're like, I can't believe I got paid for that. And probably even more times when you're like, I can't believe I didn't get paid for that. But I've had so many shows or like comedy related things that I'm like, why would you ask me to do this? Like, nobody wants me here. I did. I once did a man's 80th birthday party, and like it was also a surprise for him. Like nobody knew I was coming except for his son, who is like he doesn't really like comedy that much, but I do. And, and I was like, oh, great. So then I had to do my set. They had like rented a room in the restaurant, and like I had to do my set literally standing between everybody there and cake. Like there's a big birthday cake, and they all had to wait for me to do my set before. They said before I started, they were like, we're going to have cake, but first, let's listen to this guy that you've never heard of. So that was one. I once hosted a show during an a cappella competition. Like every school around Boston that had an a cappella group, they all went to Faneuil Hall and performed for the day. And it was like this 8-hour competition, and I hosted the whole thing, and I don't like a cappella at all. So it was ridiculous to have me do it. And they would tell you things about like the groups, like, you know, each group's been at that college for a while. It's kind of like a fraternity or something, you know, like there's different members, but it's like the same group. And like at the beginning of the day, I thought people were trying to be funny. And like somebody said that like Axl Rose was in their group. And so I like said it and laughed, and they weren't joking, I guess. So I just looked like an asshole. Like, can you believe that? But the worst thing that I've done, and that I can't believe I got paid money for, was I was an announcer for one day at a racetrack during like a NASCAR type event. So if you've ever gotten a gig off of like Gig Salad, Gig Masters, Thumbtack, you know, whatever those gig websites are, there was this guy that had found this gig. They wanted somebody to be an announcer at a racetrack, and he didn't feel comfortable doing it himself. So he invited me, and then he also invited another comedian. So there's 3 of us now. And so all 3 of us get in the car, and I'm already like, and we have to drive down to the racetrack, which is in like, what town was it? It was in like Fairhaven or Fall River or something, you know, way down south in Massachusetts. And we're driving down there, and I'm already like pretty nervous because I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do at this gig. Like, I'm not supposed to tell jokes. I'm just supposed to talk about the cars that are racing. Like, I don't know how to do that. So, you know, we're driving down there, and we're all talking about it, and what are we going to do, and how's it supposed to go? And he's like, don't worry about it. There's like a guy there that does it every week. And then there was another guy, but he quit. So they want like kind of color commentary. So that's what we're going to do. And I was like, okay. But the other guy will do like the play-by-play. And I'm like, all right, whatever. And so as we're driving there, we get to like, we're like, me and these 2 other guys, we're driving in like this kid's RAV4, and we're getting somewhat close, but then he's like, I can't get on the highway, because if I get on the highway to go there, I'll actually pass through Rhode Island, and I'm not allowed to leave the state. And I was like, oh, okay. So this is going great so far. And I was like, why are you not allowed to leave the state? And he's like, well, I'm still on parole because I got arrested for armed robbery. And apparently they rob like pizza delivery boys with a BB gun, which is still considered armed robbery. So anyways, we can't go through Rhode Island. So we have to take the long way to get to the racetrack. And eventually we get there, and we pull in, and it's like, you know, everything that you would expect, just like pickup trucks everywhere with like, you know, people are all shirtless, and, you know, a lot of American flags and thin blue line flags and stuff like that. And we're driving through with this RAV4, which like doesn't fit in at all at the racetrack. And there's these like little kids that are like 11 and 12 years old. As we're driving by, like very slowly, they're like, spin them, spin your tires. And the guy driving is like, I can't, I have traction control. And so we finally find the parking, we go in, and we get into the announcing booth where we're supposed to do our jobs for the day. And there is the guy that already works there that does like the play-by-play sort of thing, tells you about the cars that are going around, who's driving them, what kind of car, stuff like that. And he's been doing this for like 10 years. And the other guy that worked in the booth has quit. And this guy is convinced that he can do this job alone and that he does not need one other person with him. And now the three of us are coming in and sitting next to him. And I think that what he wanted was for us to just not say anything, or ideally as little as possible. And we didn't shut up the whole time. And it's also important to note that this race was on July 5th, which is the biggest day that they have for racing. So there are 5,000 people in the stands. And the other comedians, I'm keeping my mouth shut mostly because I'm like, nobody here wants me to talk. But the other comedians are like on the microphone, like, oh man, that race car has a Confederate flag on it. That's pretty shitty, huh? And this guy in front of me, he's got his shirt off. Hey, if you're in the crowd and you think this guy should put his shirt back on, put your hands in the air, you know? Like, this is like stuff that they're saying to the 5,000 person crowd. And like, the thing is that it's like the most anxious I've ever been in my life. Cause I feel like I know we're going to get fired. Like I know we're not going to make it through the day. And every minute of this day feels like an hour. Every single minute I was like, just come in and just tell us to go home. And this is an 8-hour gig. And so we got through 4 hours of it. And finally, somebody came in and tapped the guy on the shoulder that had booked the gig and was like, come with me. And I was like, oh, thank God we're getting fired. Like, I've been looking forward to this for so long. And he comes back in and, he doesn't say like, hey guys, they're letting us go home early or anything like that. He comes back in and he goes, we got to get the fuck out of here. And so we get up and we leave and we're like, all right, let's get out. And he's like, walk faster. And we leave and we get in the car to go. And like me and the other comic that were just kind of like along for the ride, we're both like, there's no way that we're getting paid for this. Like we only did half of the time. We were awful. We insulted people in the crowd. We insulted the people driving. We insulted the other announcer. There's no way that we're getting paid for this. And we're running out of this place. Like we are, the guy that booked it is telling us to go faster as we go toward the car. And we get in the car and we start driving. We get out of there. We're like halfway down the road. And we're like, oh my God, that was crazy. And he's like, yeah, I'll get you guys your money by tomorrow. And we're like, you got paid? Like, how much of the money did you get? And he's like, I got all of it. I got the whole thing. And we're like, that's insane. And he's like, yeah, they tried to pay me half and I was not having that. And I was like, all right, cool. So that was a day that I could not believe that I got paid for it. Yeah.
You guys, give it up for Sean Carter.
Yeah, Sean.
That was incredible. Sean,
Yeah.
what I want to know is, did the promoter who hired you have a BB gun with him before he got that money out of those people?
I don't know. I mean, clearly he has it like in his head that like he can strong arm somebody. It's like, I need something. I told that guy, I was like, man, you should be like a comics manager. Like you should manage comics because you'll get them paid like no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely, this is definitely the difference between people, the difference between people kind of thing. Like if someone were to say to me, we can't go on this highway because I can't go to another state, I myself would be like, no follow-up questions. Just
Yeah.
turn the car. But you were like, what?
I had
That
to
is
know.
awesome. That is wonderful. Thank you very much. That was a fantastic story. I love thinking of you being a race car announcer.
Oh, stop it.
Okay, I've got one final performer for you, and I have saved a favorite of mine for the end of the show. This performer is maybe the reason that I do things. She's so funny, and when I first started doing comedy, I was like, oh my God, if I can ever get even like part of the way to where that person is, I will be the shit. She's fucking hilarious, and I love her so much. Please welcome the amazing Katie McCarthy.
Angela.
Yeah.
That was so nice. Wow. Thank you for having me. This has been a really fun show. I was given the topic of a time I stabbed danger in the face. I strayed from it because on the fight, flight, freeze little spectrum, I am a freeze. So this is more about a spiritually dangerous time where I would say I got stabbed in the face. So I used to work at this life sciences company, and I really respected the women in my department there. I really wanted them to like me. Like, they all had their shit together. They are just like checking off all the boxes on the to-do list of life. You know, they got the career, they got the marriage, the kids, home ownership, second home ownership. They can drive better concealed alcoholism. And then I'm just like, they're just checking them off. And I've got that to-do list of life, and I'm just kind of like doodling in the margins, you know. I've got, it's like, oh, it's a T-Rex. Let's give him buck teeth. Okay. Yes, I wear the same pants every day, and I'm allowed to vote. Oh, that was kind of me working with these fancy ladies, and I didn't know how to talk to them. Like, I tried so hard, you know. You do the things like, oh yeah, I was the maid of honor in my friend's wedding this weekend. You know, she's a dentist, he's a bag of salad. I got pregnant 6 times a weekend, and I can't. You know, I can't really tell them what I'm actually doing, which is like doing 5 minutes of stand up in the basement of a sushi restaurant in Nashua, New Hampshire. Just different cultural experiences. Like, I've never stepped into an Ann Taylor loft. They've never like stepped into someone's popcorn bucket at the movie theater because they're really high and they have come to watch the SpongeBob SquarePants movie with another adult. Like, our department was just this real like cultural exchange, you know, just like Constantinople for white ladies. We're on a team with 5 women. They're all above me. They're all like super girly girls, and I'm kind of like a soft butch, you know, like Kristen Stewart is my fashion icon, and she's who I look to also with regarding how much to smile, which is, it's just not a lot. Me and Kristen Stewart, you know, you're welcome for brushing my hair. I'm usually frowning, and like Kristen Stewart, we just got models coming at me all the time. Sorry, Cara Delevingne. I'm taken. Stop being a creep. Anyways, yeah, no, they did want me to just smile a lot. This actually came up in a performance review. But a big part of my job at this company was recording reasons why people didn't qualify for this particular clinical trial. And it was this product that would help people heal after major accidents. And I can't go into the details. I have an NDA. But anyway, basically, for this log, I'm basically reading about the worst day of someone's life, like dozens of times a day, and just trying to figure out why they didn't qualify. And so I feel like it would be weird if I was smiley at work. Like, I'm reading these things. They're like, 24-year-old female. Okay, she broke her neck. Okay, the doctor says prognosis not good. Hi, everyone. That would be psychotic. Like, I'm not the kind of person who can look at that. I think some people can do this. They see it and they're like, you know, I should be grateful for my health and for this moment. And you know what? I'm playing a tiny part in helping people deal with this. I don't have that kind of attitude, unfortunately. I think about this stranger. I think about like all the struggles she's going to face if she even survives. And I just think about how life can just be irreversibly ruined just based on the smallest decision. You know, if you just switched lanes or if you just looked at the seat on the bus before sitting down in a mysterious liquid. Anyway, I'm going to go into a Herzog-esque existential thing. So I'm going to just stop. We've had a lot of that this year. But anyway, I really wanted these coworkers to like me. I tried so hard. I did some real cuck shit. Like once it was my boss Candace's 50th birthday. She was upset it was her birthday. She's a very glamorous woman. You know, she knows her way around a TJ Maxx. Like aging isn't her favorite thing. And I had these other two coworkers come over to my little cubicle. We got Rachel and Trish. Trish was kind of on Candace's level of authority, sporty lady, no nonsense, captain the softball team, not a lesbian, stop stereotyping folks. She looks like a Fox News blonde, but she has life in her eyes. I liked her a lot. And then there was Rachel, who was right above me. She was hilarious, but she was a little dramatic. She was like in her late 30s, loves Justin Bieber. Like she would wear heels to the company softball games. Like she wouldn't play. She just kind of like sink in the dugout mud, which is charming. It's charming. I liked her. And so like Rachel comes over to my cubicle and says, I need you to find a clown for today, for Candace. We have a meeting at 2. We need the clown for 2 p.m. and we need cake and champagne. So then they go off to this meeting, to another meeting, whatever. I'm in the middle of shit. Okay, fine. I Google clowns, emergency birthday clown. I make some calls. No clowns anywhere. So I order cake from Whole Foods, from delivery, from online. It'll be there in an hour, whatever. There's champagne because like people in biotech are pretty serious alcoholics. So we had some. It was perfect. Rachel and Trish came back from the meeting they were at. I told her, you know, I ordered a cake, but no available clowns. Rachel said, we have to think of something. Can you hire one of your comedians? So I have a couple of friends who do historical town tours in downtown Boston. So Rob, I think it was you that I called and I asked, well, you can't get a clown. Can you come over in your colonial garb? And he couldn't for a lot of reasons. He was unpaid, and the costumes are just a real pain in the ass. And also, when I asked, I used that voice you use when you don't really want somebody to do something. You know, hey, it's my boss's birthday, and they really want you to ask someone's. So he kindly said no. Anyways, Rachel and Trish came back from another meeting. Whole Foods had delivered the cake. Trish is like, I don't think that's big enough. Get another one. So then I told them, you know, no dice on the colonial friend, but I could go to the costume shop a couple of blocks over and find something myself. Because I thought to myself, like, well, I do comedy. I have no shame about getting in costumes. Like, I have covered myself in pink body paint and just like rolled around in front of, 10 people. I have no shame. No shame. A lot of the shame about other things, but fine. So Trish said, well, think of something. We have another meeting. It was a busy day. So I was a little resentful at that point because they'd asked me to do all this. And I can't say made me do this because I could have said no, but I wanted them to like me and I'm a cuck. So I remembered that across the street from the costume store, there was this fancy cafe that sold cake. I called the fancy cafe and usually they only do slices, but okay, we can reserve a whole cake for you. So anyways, good. So I went to the costume shop. I am angrily looking for the cheapest full coverage costume I can find. It was Gumby. $40. Then I bought the cake. It was like $50. It was beautiful. It was carrot cake. I love carrot cake. Whatever. I came back to the office with all my goods. Rachel and Trish were still in their little meeting, and I run into one of the higher ups there, Steve. And Steve was kind of like my work dad. We both hated talking, so that was a major thing we had in common. But he asked where I'd been, and I explained it to him, and I said, well, it's Candace's birthday. I had to get her a cake, and I'm gonna go into the 2 p.m. management meeting in this Gumby costume. And saying it out loud, it really made me realize some things. And I think Steve watched that light go out of my eyes, and he why are you doing this, Katie? Well, Rachel and Trish asked me, don't do this, Katie. This is a waste of your time. And it kind of hit me in the heart because, like, why was I doing it? They barely like me. Steve liked me. I should have taken Steve up when he tried to recruit me into his department. Like, he would never do this to me. Like, he would probably not even tell me if he just simply had a birthday. If he was born. I love that guy so much. But anyway, I went back to my desk. Rachel and Trish come back. I show them the cake. I inform them of the Gumby sitch, and it'll have to do. So it was showtime. I put on the Gumby costume. They took the cake into the meeting. I followed them into the meeting. We all do the happy birthday. Candace was a little embarrassed, and she said, why Gumby? I don't even like Gumby. And then she sees all the cake, and she's like, oh, this cake. This is too much cake. I don't like carrot cake. So anyways, I was like, hey, it's me, Katie, I'm Gumby. And we had a laugh, whatever. And I'm leaving with this big, uncharacteristic smile. And I go into the mother's room where we have for my colleagues who are breast pumping the milk out. And I cried for 20 minutes. That's kind of it. There's no real button to the story. Rachel did eventually induce a panic attack in me that made the entire left side of my body go numb. And I was laid off with a bunch of other people. It was kind of the best day of my life. It's kind of like Herzog said, what's really bad is that after acknowledging a wrong decision, I don't have the nerve to turn back, since I'd rather correct myself with another wrong decision. So, anyways, thank you guys. That's it.
Give it up for Katie McCarthy.
Katie.
Another wrong decision should have been the name of this show. That is a way to live your life. Katie, I got to tell you that I work as a secretary, and during the pandemic, one of my tasks for my job was to host trivia while wearing a lampshade for my house on my head.
No.
So I can feel what your life is like.
I'm so sorry.
And I want you to know, though, that I don't hate my coworkers for that. I hate them for other things, but not for that. We've all had difficult times figuring out. We're all either fired or we're doing much worse jobs all of a sudden. So that's how it goes during the pandemic. That's 2020. It's true. Yeah, everybody I know is either one or the other. You guys told amazing stories. This was really, really great. I feel like I know all of you a little bit better. And I already loved every one of you, and now I love you even a little more, which is pretty awesome. So you made my night, and I hope that you had fun too. And the Comedy Studio is nice enough to host the show every single Wednesday. They also have lots of really cool shows on the other days of the week. Pretty much every night, you can go to their website and just see some cool stuff. Sometimes it's weird, loose people like this show, and then other times it's people who tell jokes, and some of them are even good at it. It's pretty impressive. So make sure you come and tune in, and we'll be back here next week telling more crazy things that have happened to us on Tales from the Inside. Thank you. Have a great night.
Ooh, pizza's here.